Stamper YouTube channel. It's 2 days before Valentine's Day. Do you have a card for your Valentine? I'm going to show you how to use what you have to make a Valentine's card really quick. The card we're going to make today is inspired by a card I had made previously. I used the Watercolor World cling stamp to make this retirement card and used these little hash mark stamp from the Gone Fishing stamp set. And I decided that I could use some other materials that I have to recreate this card in Valentine colors and make a really cute Valentine card. Here's the materials I used. The Watercolor World stamp, the Gone Fishing stamp. I used this little hash mark stamp. I pulled out some old stamp sets from the past. This is All Year Cheer 3, and it has this really nice Happy Valentine's Day stamp. And then also from the not as far past, I pulled out this wordplay stamp set and got this You Mean the World to Me. See what I did there? You Mean the World to Me stamp. Then I really have enjoyed using this Thanks and Beyond dies that was an add-on for a previous paper pumpkin kits, and I went ahead and stamped a banner using this hexagon die. Then I've got some real red cardstock that I made into card bases. And this paper is actually from back when Stampin' Up! It was called Naturals Ivory. And I thought this kind of looked like a map. So we're going to need 2 of those, cut 4 by 5 1/4. And I think the last thing I'm using is this resin hearts embellishment. And I thought we would use these little hearts to make our map look like a Valentine's Day card. If you don't have the Watercolor World stamp, you can use any other stamp that you might have. Here's a world map stamp, or here's this one that's just a stamp of North America. So anything that you have that's a map you can use. If you look at the card I made, you can see that the continents have variegated dark and light greens, and we're going to recreate that using Valentine colors. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is get a wet wipe, and I like to use an empty stamp case, and then I'm just going to pull out all of my red and pink inks. I'm not going to use any retired colors because you can't get those ink refills anymore. So I'm just going to use some Pretty in Pink because I brought that back. And I'm going to start out with 5 dots just randomly placed around. You can always add more if you need to. Just straight onto the wet wipe. And you can see as soon as the drop hits, it starts to spread out, and that's what we want. I learned this technique from my very first Stampin' Up! Demonstrator named Ann Alonzo, and I learned so many things about stamping and making cards from her. That was Bubble Bath. I've got Poppy Parade and Pretty in Pink. Up next is Melon Mambo, and I'm going to start filling in some of those empty places. Is that 5? Yep. And then last but not least, we have to have some real red. All right, now I'm going to go back and fill in a couple more empty places. Some Pretty in Pink. We'll add 1 more of each color. Now this is a smaller area than the size of my stamp, but since these inks are all in the same color family, they're not going to get muddied up if they mix. So I'm going to go ahead and just use this smaller area. Also, I have this in a CD case, so later on, if I kept this and I wanted to use it again, I could just spritz it with some water to reactivate these inks and possibly get a few more uses out of this. So what I'm going to do is I put my map stamp on this big block, and I'm just going to stamp, use the wet wipe like it's an ink pad. And if I need to slide it around to get, actually I can open it this way. And I'm just going to move it around until I get all of the continent inked up. And again, it's all reds and pinks, so it's okay if they mix together. Then I'll get a piece of that Naturals cardstock. And I'm going to stand up to do this because I like to put as much pressure as I can. Get it centered and press. Now, if this messes up, that's okay, because we always have the other side of the paper. We always have a second chance, and it looks like we're going to need a second chance. So I turn that paper over, and then we're going to try it again. Press for a few seconds to allow the ink to soak into the paper, and we'll see how it comes out this time. Okay, that one's a little bit better. I'm going to try one more time, and this time I'm going to turn my stamp upside down so I can press down on the paper. That usually works a little bit better. I sometimes forget. So we'll turn it this way, lay the paper on top, and sometimes it's good if you get a blank piece of paper so you don't get ink on your hands to press down. There we go. And I think I like this one the best. You could keep working on it if you want to, but after I stamp You Mean the World to Me on this little thing, I'm gonna put it right there. Okay, here we go. So now that we have that, I'm going to take some red ink, and actually I'm going to grab Melon Mambo. We're going to grab some Melon Mambo ink. I'm going to grab some pink ink for my water. I'm just going to take this and place it anywhere where I want there to indicate that there's water. You can turn it so that each image isn't exactly the same, and if you had some mess ups on your paper, that's a good place to stamp some water. If you want to put it in between the continents, you can get a little bit of Post-it note paper and cover up your continents so that you can control where those little hash marks go. And get them in between. Some over here. Adds just a little bit of texture and the idea of water where the oceans are. Oh, let me do one more up here. And I'll grab 2 Post-it notes so I can get a little bit in the Indian Ocean here. There we go. All right, and that gives us just enough water for our oceans. For that, you need to get your card base, and I've already cut and scored mine. And we're gonna place this on the front of our red card base. You can see where I've tried a few times to get it just right. But nobody will know. And this will give us an 1/8 inch border all the way around. And there's that card base. Next thing we're going to do is take our "You Mean the World to Me" stamp and ink it with some real red ink. And stamp it right in the middle of our die label. And stamp it right in the middle of our die label. Okay, then I like to take the ink pad, and since we're not going to have a larger mat around this hexagon, I like to take a little bit of ink and go all the way around the edges to kind of make a faux mat and add a little distressing to it. Okay, then we're going to take some foam adhesive and do a couple strips across the back. And depending on where you live, you want to make sure that where you live is showing. And sorry, people who live in this area, but I'm covering you up. Okay. Okay, now the last thing that I'm going to do is take some of those red hearts, and I'm going to place one right where my loved one lives, which he lives in the same house with me, so we live in South Dakota. So I'm just going to put one of those hearts right around where South Dakota is. You can straighten it. And then I'm going to put 3 hearts around my sentiment. Put one down here. They're hearts, so you have to make sure they're upright. One right here. And I'll do another one down here. Try and make a triangle around that and frame it. Okay. The last thing I want to do, since this is a red card base, and unless you have white or pink gel pens, they're hard to write in sometimes, I'm going to take another piece of that Naturals paper, and I'm going to stamp on the inside. And I always like to stamp something on the inside that matches. So I'm going to grab this stamp set from the Dollar Tree that has a perfect little earth right here to coordinate with the stamps that I used. I think I'm going to use the pink ink pad for that. Stamp that in the lower right hand corner. And I'll go ahead and use the pink also for Happy Valentine's Day. I was trying to find my Melon Mambo, but I couldn't find it. So this is Pink Passion, I think. Passion Pink. Pink Passion is right. I'll stamp that right in the middle. I always say, if you know the person really well, stamp your sentiment towards the top so you have more space to write. But if you don't know them very well and you don't know what to say, you can put it more towards the bottom. I'll split the difference. Okay. And then we'll place this on the inside. And there you go. It's a Valentine's card, and there was only one stamp that I used that was explicitly Valentine's. The finish this up and get it ready to send, I have an ivory envelope that will coordinate with my naturals paper. And I'm going to stamp the flap of the envelope with the map. So I'll use that ink pad again that I made to ink up my continents. Cover up everything except for that flap and just position it however you want it to land on your envelope flap. Press for a few seconds to make sure the ink sinks in. And now we have a matching envelope for our card. The last thing I'm going to do is turn it over and stamp a little earth in the bottom right hand corner. And there you go. Hope you enjoyed my video, and I hope this inspires you to use what you have to make a card.